I'm just trying to live out my dream, be an NBA player, compete at the highest level against the greatest players in the world.
Denzel Robert Valentine, born November 16, 1993. The story of Denzel Valentine is one of meteoric rise met with a jarring fall. A tale of a guy who went from an under-the-radar recruit in high school to the Big Ten's most dominant player at Michigan State, only to see his NBA dreams crash before they truly took off. Valentine was never the most athletically gifted player. He didn't wow scouts with jaw-dropping vertical leaps or blazing speed. What he had was a basketball IQ far beyond his years, an innate sense of playmaking, and a three-point shot that became his calling card. He was the kind of player who did everything right on the court, a coach's dream who didn't need to be the fastest or strongest because he was always the smartest. At Michigan State under legendary coach Tom Izzo, Valentine transformed from a role player into a college basketball superstar. By his senior year, he was a walking triple-double threat, averaging 19.2 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 7.8 assists per game. He led the Spartans to a Big Ten tournament championship, shot over 44% from three, and was named a consensus All-American and the AP National Player of the Year. For many, his NBA future seemed inevitable. The Chicago Bulls believed in his promise enough to select him 14th overall in the 2016 NBA Draft, making him a lottery pick and a symbol of a new era for the struggling franchise. But the NBA was not as welcoming to Valentine as college had been. His high basketball IQ and reliable shooting weren't enough to compensate for the athletic gaps he couldn't overcome. Injuries slowed his progress, and his lack of explosive athleticism became glaringly obvious against faster, stronger NBA players. As the Bulls cycled through rebuilds, Valentine's role dwindled. By his fifth season, he was a forgotten piece, a player who once thrived under the bright lights of the NCAA, but was now a bench warmer struggling for minutes. Eventually, he found himself out the league entirely, bouncing between the G League and overseas teams in a desperate attempt to revive his career. The player who once seemed like the perfect modern guard, sharp shooting, playmaking, and a high IQ, was suddenly without a job in the world's best basketball league. How did Denzel Valentine go from a college superstar and NBA lottery pick to a forgotten talent wandering the basketball wilderness? Let's talk about it. Salute to my man Swag for Prez on IG for this request. One of the hardest working young men out there, man. Salute. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Denzel Valentine is a 6'4" shooting guard from Lansing, Michigan, a city with a strong basketball culture that helped shape his early years. Growing up in a basketball family, his father was a coach, and his older brother Drew Valentine also played. Denzel's path to basketball seemed almost inevitable. He attended J.W. Sexton High School, where he quickly made a name for himself as a versatile guard, capable of scoring, passing, and leading his team. Despite not being an elite recruit, he earned a top 100 ranking nationally and a scholarship to Michigan State, staying close to home under the tutelage of Hall of Fame coach Tom Izzo. At Michigan State, Valentine's growth was methodical. He spent 4 years as a Spartan, steadily improving his game until his senior season when he exploded into stardom. His all-around brilliance earned him the AP National Player of the Year award and cemented his status as an NBA prospect. Stunt number 1, lack of NBA athleticism. Denzel Valentine's biggest asset in college, his high basketball IQ and polished skill set, quickly became overshadowed in the NBA by a glaring weakness: his lack of elite athleticism. At Michigan State, Valentine's intelligence, court vision, and shooting touch allowed him to dominate against players who either weren't as skilled or lacked his experience. But the NBA is an entirely different world, where even average athletes possess speed, strength, and explosiveness beyond what the college players typically have. Valentine was never the fastest, strongest, or most explosive player on the floor. He couldn't blow by defenders with his first step, wasn't quick enough to consistently stay in front of faster guards, and lacked the vertical leap to finish over bigger defenders at the rim. While his shooting remained solid, his other limitations made him an easy target for opposing teams. Defenders could crowd him on the perimeter, knowing he lacked the burst to punish them by driving. On defense, he became a liability, often struggling to keep up with quicker wings or stay in front of ball handlers. As the NBA evolved into a faster, more athletic league, players like Valentine, who relied on skill and intelligence, became increasingly difficult to justify in a starting lineup. His struggles became even more apparent as the Chicago Bulls cycled through multiple rebuilds and coaching changes, leaving Valentine without a clear role. The very things that made him special in college, his playmaking, high basketball IQ, and versatility, were neutralized at the highest level because he simply couldn't keep up physically. For a player drafted as a sharpshooting, versatile guard, failing to match the NBA's athletic standards meant he was always a step behind, and in a league driven by speed and explosiveness, being a step behind often means you're out of a job. Stunt number 2, injuries that stalled his progress. Even before his NBA career began, Denzel Valentine's body was already showing signs of wear and tear. Injuries became a persistent issue for him, starting with his time at Michigan State, where he missed a portion of his senior season due to arthroscopic left knee surgery. Once he reached the NBA, the injury issues only intensified. After being drafted 14th overall by the Chicago Bulls in 2016, Valentine's promising career was almost immediately derailed by a series of injuries that consistently interrupted his progress. One of the first major setbacks came on April 4th, 2018, when Valentine underwent arthroscopic debridement on the same left knee, raising concerns about his durability. When he returned to action later that year, his mobility and lateral quickness appeared compromised. Still, Valentine managed to average a career-high 10.2 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 3.1 assists during the 2017-18 season, showing flashes of the versatile playmaker he was projected to become. However, just months after his knee procedure, Valentine suffered a far more serious injury. Ahead of the 2018-19 season, he required reconstructive surgery on his left ankle, forcing him to miss the entire season. By the time he returned, his stock had plummeted. Valentine was no longer seen as a foundational piece for the Bulls. The ankle surgery took away much of his mobility that had made him effective as a secondary playmaker and floor spacer. Injuries didn't just rob Valentine of valuable playing time, they also robbed him of his confidence. His limited athleticism became even more of an issue as he lost mobility and explosiveness, making it difficult for him to regain his form. As a result, his defensive struggles became more pronounced and his once dependable three-point shot lost its consistency. The player who once seemed destined to thrive in the modern NBA was now a step slower and a lot less impactful. Stunt number 3, limited role and confidence erosion. As the NBA continued to evolve into a faster, more athletic league, Denzel Valentine's place within the Chicago Bulls' rotation grew increasingly uncertain. After missing the entire 2018-19 season due to a serious ankle surgery, he returned to a team that had already begun moving on without him. New players had emerged, coaching philosophies had changed, and Valentine's opportunities to prove himself became scarce. What should have been his prime years turned into a struggle for playing time as the Bulls constantly experimented with their lineup, trying to rebuild around younger, more athletic talent. The problem wasn't just the lack of minutes, it was the lack of a clear role. Was Valentine supposed to be a playmaker, a three-point specialist, or a secondary ball handler? As the Bulls shuffled through different coaches and philosophies, his responsibilities on the court kept changing. At one point, he was utilized as an off-ball shooter, but his inconsistent three-point shooting made that unreliable. Other times, he was positioned as a secondary playmaker, but his limited burst and inability to break down defenses hindered his effectiveness. As his role continued to shift, Valentine's confidence took a hit. In the limited minutes he did receive, he often looked hesitant and unsure of himself, leading to forced shots, rushed decisions, and visible frustration. Rather than being the versatile, high IQ player he was in college, he became a liability who played tight, fearing mistakes would lead to even less playing time. Eventually, Valentine's struggles became too significant to ignore. The Bulls decided not to extend his contract, and he found himself without a team, desperate to keep his professional career alive. He turned to the G League and overseas leagues, but his inconsistency and lack of confidence followed him. The NBA had moved on, and Valentine was left to wonder what could have been had he stayed healthy and found a stable role. All in all, Denzel Valentine's story is a cautionary tale of how talent, even when backed by high basketball IQ, can be rendered irrelevant without the right combination of health, confidence, and opportunity. Once a college superstar who seemed destined for a long NBA career, Valentine's journey quickly unraveled due to injuries, a lack of athleticism, and an inability to carve out a stable role. But perhaps the most unexpected chapter of his career came not on the court but in the studio. Valentine attempted to launch a serious music career, dropping tracks that were met with more laughs than admiration. His rap attempts went viral for all the wrong reasons, turning him into a meme of sorts. In 2024, he signed on to play in Italy, so maybe the music isn't too serious. Luckily, salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.